Alan B. Levan, you are currently the chairman of Nova Southeastern University's Board of Trustees. Throughout your career, spanning more than 4 decades, you have served as chairman of 4 New York Stock Exchange-listed companies: BBX Capital, Bank Atlantic, Blue Green Vacations, and Levitt Corporation. Today, your companies retain more than 7,000 employees. By the time you were 28 years old, you had raised more than $100 million in seed capital. During your entire career, you have raised more than $2 billion in capital. You have had the honor of ringing the bell at New York Stock Exchange 9 times. Additionally, you have the distinction of being the only business person in the 225 years of the stock exchange of ringing the opening bell and closing bell in the same day. You are the founder and chairman of BBX Capital Foundation, which has contributed more than $15 million in the South Florida community. You have received Habitat for Humanity's Spirit of Humanity Award, NSU's Entrepreneurial Hall of Fame Award, Greater Miami Chamber of Commerce's Cutting Edge Award, the South Florida Sun Sentinel's Excalibur Business Leader of the Year Award, Florida Atlantic University's Business Leader of the Year Award, and the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year Award for the state of Florida. Alan Levan, in acknowledgement of your visionary leadership, achievements in business, and philanthropic contributions to the South Florida community, the Board of Trustees of Nova Southeastern University is proud to confer upon you the honorary Doctor of Business Administration degrees. Have a photo opportunity. Yeah, why don't you get right there? There you
Wow, I'm as excited as you are. Good morning, graduates. Congratulations. And congratulations to all of the parents, relatives, and friends of our graduates who are here today. How about one more round for all your loved ones? Dr. Hamberry, thank you so much for that generous introduction. I am truly honored to be here today. Speaking of introductions and accolades, just the other day, I said to my wife, would you, in your wildest dreams, have imagined that we would have achieved this level of success? She looked directly at me, and she replied, I don't want to hurt your feelings, sweetheart, but you have never been in my wildest dreams. As I stand before you, I'm reminiscent of my own college days. I attended Tulane University and was president of my fraternity. One Saturday night, we had a fraternity event. It was a hayride through the city. Actually, it wasn't a true hayride. It didn't have horse-drawn wagons. Instead, we had 2 flatbed trucks driving through the streets of the city. There were 40 of us in each truck. The trucks were filled with hay, our dates, and of course, lots of beer. At some point, one of the guys tossed a beer can, only it missed its receiver, clipping one of the girls above the eye. It resulted in a considerable amount of blood. It was kind of a OMG moment. As the fates would have it, a motorcycle police officer saw the commotion, pulled us over, and asked who was in charge. Without hesitation, everybody pointed to, guess who? Me. Levan's in charge. Then we were all hauled off to jail, all 80 of us. To make matters worse, somehow it made the 11 o'clock news. So my parents, 863 miles away in Miami, saw us on TV and saw me being interviewed behind bars. Fortunately, I was able to call our fraternity advisor, and he managed to bail us out by 2 a.m. in the morning. And the positive thing is he expunged all of our jail records. Boy, was I lucky that night. My guess is that this tale is funnier today than it was 50 years ago. But at the time, it was my first experience in crisis management. One of the more valuable lessons I learned is never screw up on a slow news day. Last month, I was asked by a student at an NSU cocktail reception, how did I get to be chairman of this amazing university? I grinned. I thought about a 20-second elevator speech, and I just blurted out that I had been on the board of trustees for 18 years, and I was lucky to have been chosen chairman. I've since thought about that question and the significance of it in preparing this commencement speech. How did I get to be from the son of a pest control exterminator to the board chairman of NSU and chairman and CEO of 4 New York Stock Exchange companies? The answer is, and as Dr. Hamberry said earlier, it wasn't a straight line. It was a lifetime of connecting the dots. So I'll attempt to describe for you from my own experiences by way of discussing 3 myths of life and business. Myth number 1, the myth of luck. Myth number 2, the myth of M. And myth number 3, the myth of failure, disappointment, misfortune, and tragedy. Let's start with the myth of luck. Luck is not what you think it is. It's not the game of chance type, like winning the lottery or a hot streak in Vegas. In life and business, luck is a developed skill set. There have been certain things that run through my life, and you guessed it, luck happens to be one of them. It's so pervasive that I've often been called Lucky Levan. People talk about how the most complicated, insurmountable challenges turn out in my favor. I laugh about it when people say, somebody's watching over Levan, or Levan comes from the lucky sperm club. or he was born under a lucky star. In fact is, I've been the beneficiary of luck and coincidence more times than I can remember. Let's take a look at some of my lucky coincidences. In college, luckily, a graduating senior asked me if I wanted to take over as advertising manager of the student directory. Without hesitation, I said, of course. The next year, the faculty asked me to be business manager of all student publications, the newspaper, the yearbook, the radio station, and the student directory. After college, the day before I accepted an entry-level job as a bank teller in New York, a fraternity brother's father, meeting me for the first time, asked me not to take the job I intended to accept the next morning. He instead set up an interview for me at J.P. Morgan Bank, the bank he worked for. The very next day, I interviewed and was accepted into a special high-level training class in real estate lending. J.P. Morgan, the largest bank in the world at that time, altered the course of my life. It was an incredible calling card for me to have J.P. Morgan on my resume. While there, I discovered and found my passion. I fell in love with real estate and real estate development, much like the companies that the bank was lending to. A few years later, I returned to Miami to seek my passion in real estate. In the interim, I joined my father's small exterminating business as a pest control route man, spraying houses and lawns. As luck would have it, a friend of a friend asked me to be partners on a real estate project. We would split the profits 50-50. I would do all the work, and he would provide all the money. The operative piece here is I had no money, but I did have high energy and passion. My new partner had less energy and passion, but he did have lots of his father's money. At age 40, I was asked to go on the board of $2 billion Bank Atlantic. Within 3 years, I was asked to be CEO and chairman and take over the bank. We grew Bank Atlantic to 100 branches and $6 billion. In 2004, 3 years before the Great Recession, Bank Atlantic stopped construction lending on high-rise condominiums. We were the first bank in Florida to have seen the signs of a coming recession. As a result of our early decision, we took no construction losses when the recession hit 3 years later. Was all this luck? I would suggest not. The fact is that luck comes to those who are prepared for it, who can recognize and seize the opportunity. There's a Zen proverb that many of you may be familiar with that says, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. It's actually true. My experience is that opportunity is everywhere. You just have to be able to see it. Here are a few elements to ensure that luck will come your way. Dress for success and exude self-confidence. Love yourself. I know that sounds really old school, but some things never change. You only have one opportunity to make a good first impression. I did it in high school, in college, the night I was introduced to my fraternity brother's father, and when I met my first partner. Be intensely curious. Read lots of business news every single day. Ask lots of questions. Every few weeks, an idea will pop into your head. Capture it, write it down. Put it in a future concepts file. These thoughts may not be useful today, but they might be helpful years later. Read biographies of successful people you admire. Also, successful people you despise. It's amazing what you will learn and what will inspire you from these biographies. Lifelong experiences should come from every activity that you do. And always be a student of your business and the things that can affect it. Train yourself to learn something new every day. And most importantly, surround yourself with people who advance your life and business. Hire the best and brightest, particularly people smarter than you. Jack Nicklaus, the legendary golfer, said, "The more I practice, the luckier I get." My advice to you, practice being lucky. The second myth is the myth of M. Now, I apologize for being a little mysterious here with this myth, because the subject is so obvious, particularly to newly minted M.B.As, that I didn't want to lose your interest before I began. I really hope you don't roll your eyes or take a quick nap, because when practiced diligently, this concept will save your business, and by the way, your marriage as well. According to one banking study, it is the cause of 82% of business failures and the second leading cause of divorce. So, okay, what is it already? Anybody want to guess what M stands for? Shout it out. So, it's not marijuana. It's not margaritas or macchiatos, nor is it meatballs for that matter. So, drum roll, many of you were right, it's money. But that's the myth. The myth is that money resolves all financial issues, but that's illusory. The important concept here, particularly for business graduates, is cash flow. Now, of course, I know that you have studied cash flow. You've learned how to budget it, analyze it, and record it. But what I want to talk to you about for a few moments is managing it. I learned my first experience in cash flow when I was about your age. I had been elected president of the fraternity, and during rush week, I instructed my fraternity brothers to invite only the best pledges to join. I only wanted the creme de la creme. Historically, our pledge classes were comprised of 30 men, but I mandated we would only take the top 15 on the list. Well, that part was really successful. We took 15 pledges. Unfortunately, I hadn't understood that dues from the additional 15 pledges were necessary to pay the overhead. This was a huge wake-up call for me. I almost single-handedly bankrupted the fraternity. This became an indelible business lesson for me, and 50 years later, I'm still talking about the importance of positive cash flow. Many people never grasp that concept, that cash flow is the most important element in running a business, whether it be a Fortune 500 company or a startup. Positive cash flow is the gold standard. Again, generally, managing cash flow is easy, and you're all probably thinking that. Here's the hard part. It's the unanticipated, unexpected, once-in-a-lifetime events that turn positive cash flow to negative. Events like a recession, a large account receivable that goes delinquent, a hurricane, a family illness, loss of your most important client, maybe a lawsuit, possibly losing your dream job. Even Steve Jobs, who founded Apple, lost his. All of these are uncontrollable events. Others around you, when these happen, might say, "How could we have known? Nobody saw it coming. Everybody's got the same problem." As MBAs, I encourage you to train yourself to see around corners, to anticipate these once-in-a-lifetime events. Be prepared for them. Force yourself to reserve cash, hoard it, update your contingency plan for uncontrollable events on a quarterly basis. Take it from me, positive cash flow takes years and years to build, but it can disappear in an instant. So that's the myth. The myth is if you have money, you will always have money. That's the myth. But I'm here to tell you nothing could be further from the truth. My advice to you as MBAs, if you remember nothing else from this commencement speech, please remember one thing: cash flow. Repeat after me: cash flow. Come on, let's shout it out. Cash flow. And now, my last myth that I want to share with you is the myth of failure. Our lives and our character are defined not by our successes, but by our failures, disappointments, misfortunes, and tragedy. Life is unpredictable. We all experience setbacks, some more severe than others. Personally, I have a black belt in failure. I've had the good luck to fail early and often. I've learned not to dwell on it. My dad, who was the poster boy for being optimistic, always viewed his glass as half full. He gave me sage advice when I was young. Anytime something negative happened to me, he would say, "Next, move on." Unfortunately, or fortunately, I've had my share. My skills in advanced math were not sufficient to get me into business school, which is where you all are. You see, I'm not as smart as any of you. I could do the exercise on my head where two trains are leaving the station, their stations at different speeds, and what time would they meet? But I couldn't do it on paper. So I enrolled in the College of Arts and Sciences. I was shocked to find out I still needed advanced math to graduate, even in liberal arts. So here's where the workarounds came in. I became a philosophy major because the logic component satisfied my college math requirement. And as it turns out, logic and philosophy have been an incredible asset to my business career. After college, I applied to law school. But again, my grades were not good enough. rejection just increased my determination. I reimagined disappointment. During the course of my business career, there have been dozens of failures, including putting one of our subsidiaries into bankruptcy during the recession. I remember these failures and disappointments more vividly than my successes. I've endured, and it has strengthened my character. J.K. Rowling said, "It is impossible to live without failing at something, unless you live so cautiously that you might as well not lived at all, in which case you fail by default." It's inevitable that most of you are going to fail at something, and probably multiple times in your life. If you're not failing, you're not reaching or trying. Rather than letting these events define us, learn from them. Increase your resolve. Use them as a badge of honor. Essentially, reimagine what it means to fail. Steve Jobs said that getting fired from Apple was the best thing that ever happened to him. As my father said, next, move on. And tragedy. My wife and I have been blessed with 5 wonderful children and 12 amazing grandchildren. Sadly, 261 days ago, the youngest of our 5 children died from cancer. Our beautiful daughter, Lauren, was our baby, only 36 years old. Our family has been left with a sense of loss, helplessness, continuing waves of grief, and deep sadness. She fought hard, forced her smiles, and was confident and optimistic till the end. In her honor, we will continue to do the same. Our resolve is strengthened to continue to do good things and to make her proud. We had a choice. We could let this tragedy consume us and destroy us, or we could use it as a source of strength. In your lifetime, failure and tragedy will come your way. I pray when it does, you will not lose your compass. So when that student asked me, how did I get to be chairman of the board of NSU? Believe me, it was not a straight line. Life and business is never a straight line. My final words to you: dispel the myths. Live your life lucky. Always focus on uncontrollable events that affect your cash flow. View your failures as opportunities. Graduates, I wish you a well-lived, successful, and joyous life. Please make it a point to seek me out when you become chairman of the board and tell me how you did it. Sharks, fins up. Go out and dominate. Congratulations, M.B.A. and M.I.B.A. class of 2019. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan, for sharing your thoughts with us today.